Alrighty guys, so today we are going to talk about a spell format that is so versatile that I'm just going to walk you through the basics, and that is a jar spell. So honestly, there are about as many uses for a jar spell as there are things that you could put in a jar. You can quite literally make any intention fit into this space. You could make this as something to trap energy. You can make this as something to keep things away. You could do so much kind of stuff with just a jar, and it all depends on what you want to put inside of it. So a good example of a jar spell that keeps things away is actually a ward. This is one of my wards that I just kind of have hanging out in case, and it is a very simple jar spell with a lot of protective and slightly baneful elements in it. The nice thing about jar spells is that they last a long time. So long as the jar goes undisturbed and all the contents remain inside, your jar spell could last potentially forever, depending on what you want it to do. So with that being said, these are very much the kind of spells that you don't want to just kind of one and done for one effect. These are lasting charms that just kind of keep emanating that energy for as long as you want it to. Another example of a jar spell that I have done with great success in the past is a binding spell. And I will say, caveat, do not bury things all over your yard that do not decompose, right? You don't want to fill your yard with jars and things, but on occasion, if you just have like an X marks the spot situation and you know where just one jar is, I'd say that's fine. And that's kind of what I did. I had someone that was very much bothering my family and would not leave us alone. And so one picture of them, some slightly baneful ingredients, and some string later, they were in a jar and buried in my backyard. And then just like, putting someone's name in a freezer, that kind of jar spell very much cancels someone's influence that they might have over your life, your loved ones, your home, or anything like that. So that's a case of quite literally set it and forget it. And so long as that jar remains undisturbed, we haven't had a problem since. Although in that spell, I did, as I was asking God to really put that power in it, I made it very clear to him that I did not want any harm to come to that person. I was not trying to hurt them. I was just trying to put a wall between them and my family, and to render their efforts to break that wall useless. It's not about harming people, and sometimes even though you're using baneful ingredients or things people would consider baneful, that doesn't mean that it is inherently a hex or a curse. Sometimes it is quite literally just a shield. But something you can do for a more attracting or positive spin is make something like a money jar, in which, you might get those really cool glitter things to put in. You can make it look as cool as you want, and you can fill it with things like coins or herbs that represent wealth, and whenever you feel like you just need a boost into your prosperity, you might pick it up and give it a little shake. Get all the glitter going, get all the herbs spinning around, and just by shaking it like that, infuse your energy into it again to kind of pump it back up. Now, keep in mind that there are spell jar formats that are considered not really good for just anyone to use, that are even considered closed. For instance, if you are not a root worker or you are not someone who practices hoodoo, honey jars are not really your thing, So there are many types of spells across the board, and not all of them are for everybody. But that's okay, because for everything that you can't use, there's another thing that you can. So if I were to make something that wanted to attract energy, I would think of it not like a fly trap, but I might put something in here that would act like a magnet. Say if you wanted to gain wealth and you had a nice piece of malachite, you can anchor that into a jar spell, and then you can fill it with other things that represent wealth. Coins, cinnamon, basil, anything like that around the stone, and that stone can represent gravity, pulling that wealth into that jar and collecting that energy there for you. This is one of those things where you'd want dry ingredients because you'd want to leave it open. You don't want anything that could potentially get moldy or get weird like that. Personally, jar spells don't tend to be my favorite because after a while there's only so many jars you can reasonably have going on. At some point you are going to want to start saving space again by getting rid of all these jars full of stuff. But on the odd spells where you really just kind of want to make a little trap basically for any energy you're trying to collect, or you want to use it to encase and cut off people that are really bothering you, or you want to make those wards that, instead of something hitting you, will hit this instead. That is what jar spells are really good for. They literally represent, you know, a container. So anything that you are trying to gather or trying to bottle up, that's what jar spells shine for. And in fact, down below I will write down a pretty much universal system you can use for jar spells that attract and jar spells that deflect. So with that in mind, I hope this helps you think about jar spells a little bit and think about, you know, the concept of keeping out versus attracting in. And all that said, I will see you guys next week for our Angel of the Month. It's already almost the end of February, can't believe it. But I'll see you guys next time. See ya! By the way, if you want to see these videos 2 weeks earlier, consider subscribing to my Patreon, where you not only get all these videos, but also recipe cards, specific deity profiles, and lots of other interesting things to look at. Video tiers start at $10 a month, so definitely consider checking it out.